That. Thank you, computer. Let's rock and roll, everybody. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Nova Scotia Bird Society Zoom meeting. Initially, or first off, I gratefully acknowledge that we live, work in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We recognise the treaties of peace and friendship and the Mi'kmaq as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And for this, we give thanks. Okay, I've got to read from my notes or I'll only get it wrong. So, I'm Tony Millard. I'm the president of Nova Scotia Bird Society. I talk a little too fast and a little too much at times, so I'm sorry about that. Little housekeeping. Please ensure you are muted. If I start doing things, as I've said a few times, my internet skills and IT skills are legendary and I'll probably completely screw it up. I need a little help I can get on that front. Okay, a few announcements. The next NSBS field trip is on March the 8th. It will be a guided walk at Martinique Beach on Eastern Shore from Halifax. See the Facebook events section for full details and on the website. Our next Zoom meeting will be on the 26th of March and will feature noted ornithologist and author Mark Dennis talking about birding adventures in Kenya. That's going to have some interesting birds for us to check out. Don't forget the NSBS annual out of town meeting this year has been announced early. It's on the 6th and 7th of June, that weekend on Briar Island. Accommodation can be a bit difficult on Briar, so we've announced it early to enable folks to find somewhere to stay, Airbnb, the lodge, or whatever. Plus, you can always stay in Digby and drive in or at one of the campgrounds on Long Island where we'll be. That's going to be special. I think it's been a long while since it's been on Briar, and we all know Briar is a top birding destination. Our recent letter to Premier Houston regarding the, put it bluntly, gutting of the DNR has garnered a lot of media interest. We've had a lot of support from other organisations. There was a CBC interview done with myself last night. I believe it was either on this morning or tomorrow. I'm just trying to get a copy of it because I was working. We're doing all we can to try and get this, well, frankly, crazy decision reversed. And so are a number of other organisations around the province, our academics, etc., etc. And we'll just have to see how things pan out. Talk to your local government representative and make a bit of noise is the best advice I can give. Our social media presence is growing in leaps and bounds. In the last 5 months, our Instagram following has increased by over 10%, and we're approaching 27,000 folks on Facebook, which is a phenomenal total. We have a very small admin team, and so please be patient with us. Sometimes it can be a bit daunting, but we keep on top of things and we're not getting spam issues, etc., etc. I'd also say if you're not already a paid member of the Bird Society, it starts at $20 a year. That's less than the price of a Tim Hortons a month. So supporting us will help. A lot of projects in education and conservation around the province. We base almost everything in NS. We're funding scholarships. We're doing, helping with free native seeds for in your garden for attracting birds and bugs. So there's a lot of things we do, and especially behind the scenes that we don't always shout about. Plus, you get our wonderful quarterly magazine as well. You may occasionally see a cat walking in front of me with its tail in the way. I'm sorry, it's a kitten. We can't control him. Anyway, keep checking our Facebook page and website for updates. We're also getting a lot of great feedback on the From Waste to Wings Swallow Nest Box project. That is, it's increasing in leaps and bounds, and we're hoping to get some funding. If that happens, there'll be some very big announcements about that. Anyway, enough of me chatting. On to the main event of the evening. Avian Rehab. We're pleased to welcome our special guest, Hope Swinimer. I've known Hope for a number of years. We used to live nearby. You're all familiar with her, star of TV, etc., etc. She was born and raised quite close to where I'm talking to you tonight from Yarmouth area in Argyle. Spent a lot of time outdoors as a child and enjoying everything nature has got to offer. She knew she wanted to work with animals in some capacity. Whilst working at the Dartmouth Veterinary Hospital as a manager, she took in her first rehab animal in 1995, a robin that had been attacked by a cat. And that is where the story begins. Over to you, Hope.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for zooming in tonight. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I always welcome the opportunity to tell stories about Hope for Wildlife. And I just have to say thank you for all you do for the birds in Nova Scotia. I joined as a member many, many years ago, and you've been there for me through the years. I've had you helped me identify birds, many birds over the years, and I just can't thank you enough for the support you give the whole province and what it means to Nova Scotians. It's really amazing. And when you think back to when we got started, things were a lot different in the 90s when Hope for Wildlife got started. And back then, I don't know if any of you remember, but we had two amazing individuals, Elaine and Mike Q, who ran the Raptor Rehab in Nova Scotia. They were both Department of Natural Resources employees. And when they would go out and find an injured bird of prey, they would bring it into Dartmouth Veterinary Hospital. And I think that's where a lot of my interest in the wild world of birds and mammals got started. And I always remember it. I used to always say to Dr. McKay, well, this helps the birds, but what about the mammals? And what about the songbirds? And that's sort of how it really got started. Um, as the years went on, it grew and grew. So what started as 50 or 60 animals a year, now we do over 7,000 animals each and every year. Our mission at Hope for Wildlife is really just connecting people to wildlife in a positive way through knowledge and understanding. And whenever I have a tough question to answer, some ethical dilemma, I go back to my mission, and it really does help me come up with the answer. So it's guided me all these years and hasn't steered me wrong. But I think sometimes a picture explains a mission even better. And you can tell just by looking at this little girl's face what she's thinking. About 10 years ago, I received a call from a young lady, and she asked if I'd come talk to her naturalist group. And I took all her information and booked it. And just as I was getting ready to hang up from the phone call, she said to me, you know, we met before. And I said, oh, really? When did we meet? And it turned out it was the little girl in this photo that I was talking to. And she said, even though she was very, very young, she remembers the time she spent and came out to visit Hope for Wildlife, and we chatted. And it just shows you, I think everybody in this room, everybody listening tonight has in some way engaged with someone about nature, about birds, about our natural world. And you just don't realize the impact you're having. And I think everybody that takes the time to share stories, it has a really good outcome that you may not even be aware of. This is what Hope for Wildlife looked like when I bought it. We've moved many times. We actually started in Eastern Passage, and then we moved to a little place in Seaforth that I quickly outgrew. It was just down the road from here. And then in 2001, I bought this old farmstead. And this is sort of what it looks like today. So a lot of the old buildings are gone. In fact, it was really rather sad when we ripped down one of the last old buildings. And we built what we needed to do the work that we set out to do. I think one of the best buildings on the whole place is our hospital, and it's in the big red barn here. And we're very lucky to have a veterinary hospital right on site to give the care that's needed for these animals. Um, when we started, we'd have vets come in, and we're very, very lucky now to have Dr. Michaela with us. And she joined us when she was just a young lady, just starting in veterinary school. And she came out and volunteered for a full summer with us. And then every year after that, we hired her for the summer and paid her to help us out here at the farm. She graduated, became a veterinarian, went out and worked in the veterinary field. And then about 4 years ago, we placed an ad finally deciding we needed a full-time forever vet. And she applied, and we couldn't be happier. And she loves it here, and we love having her. And because she stays, she's learned an unbelievable number of skills, and we've all grown and learned with her. So it really is quite amazing what we know about medicine now compared to what we knew about medicine back in the 90s. We are inspected by the Nova Scotia Veterinary Medical Association, so we meet all the same standards that a dog or cat hospital would. Just some of the buildings that we've had to build to be able to do the kind of job we want to do. These were marine units. They're looking a little bit older now because this picture was probably taken about 8 years ago, just when we put them in. But they're huge units, about 14 feet long and 5 feet deep. And they're great for our seabirds, the ducks and the geese and all that kind of thing. Anything that needs a swimming hole would be rehabbed in these. But we also do otters and seals and beavers and anything like that. These function very well. All our gulls go through these units, but it's really quite amazing. When we started out in this world, we didn't know as much as we know now, and we learned by trial and error. And before we were able to come up with units this beautiful, we would see how the young baby ducklings, for example, would struggle and how it would take them a long time to mature. We knew mom could do it so much quicker than us, and we always wondered why. When we put these beautiful units in and gave them beautiful sunshine and fresh air and natural grass and water that has movement, they got their waterproofing way quicker. They never ever got bumblefoot. They grew up way, way faster. So it just shows you by building enclosures that makes it more comfortable for them to rehab, you can have some really good results. We also changed our type of caging that we used. These work well for not only birds, but for mammals too. So even though they look pretty basic, you can dress them up to suit the needs of whatever species you want to put in there. Say you put a bird that needs open spaces for flight, you can make that happen. Say you want to jam it full of trees and make it a really private haven for the more stressy birds, you can do that too. And you can make them good for mammals or whatever kind of critter that comes along. And this is one that's decked out with trees and stumps and digging material for the foxes. So we try and suit the units to the species that we put in them. We're very happy to say we're on solar energy, so we no longer depend on fossil fuel. This past summer was very good to us. We actually made a little bit of extra money with such beautiful sunshine, and we have 2 solar panel farms now, and they completely we produce more than what we use at this point, so it works out really, really well. During COVID, we got really busy, and because we couldn't do a lot of the education work that we normally would do because the school systems were closed and all that kind of thing, we decided to invest in creating veterinary clinics across Nova Scotia. Because think about it, say you have an animal in distress at the tip of Cape Breton or down in Yarmouth, it's a long haul to get to Seaforth, Nova Scotia. And oftentimes the patients wouldn't survive that journey into us. So we created the triage centers as veterinary clinics so they could stabilize the animals. So we would warm them up, give them fluid therapies, give them oxygen if they needed, give them pain meds, whatever we could do with a veterinary technician overseen by our veterinarian. And so the first one we put in was in the valley, not far from Wolfville. And then we put another one in on the South Shore, which is quite close to Bridgewater. And we put a third one in close to the causeway in Cape Breton. And we just purchased land, so we'll be putting one in Kemptown to service people from Antigonish to Pictou. Seems to be kind of a dead spot that's hard to get volunteers and it's hard to get the animals in. So we'll be fixing that problem this summer when we get it up and going. But these facilities work really, really well. We also put in a turtle trauma center. I know your interest is birds, but I bet you there's a few turtle lovers in the group tonight. And in Nova Scotia, we have 4 species of freshwater turtles, and they're all at risk. They're all in trouble. And so I got to go to Peterborough in Ontario, and they have an amazing turtle trauma center there. And I thought my tour would be like an hour. And 2.5 hours later, we were still walking through the facility and seeing what they had. It was just out of this world. But I came back with a lot of good ideas. And so we've created, we opened it in August, the Turtle Trauma Center. And just from August till when the season changed, we got over 150 patients in. We're having to winter over about 35 turtles right now. So it's really, I can't wait to see what the spring holds for them. So We have three important goals at Hope for Wildlife, and the first is education. A lot of people are surprised at how much education work we do. We get out into the school system at least 3 times a week, where we go to talk into the classrooms with some education animals, usually a bird on a glove, that kind of thing. Um, for 30 years, I've wanted to get into the curriculum in Nova Scotia's education system. Last year, we finally did it. So we put 7 classes together, which would meet the standards of what Nova Scotia curriculum required. And we did, it's a lot to do with climate change, but it's a lot to do with the interactions of all the species and how they work so beautifully together. It's for grade 4. And so 7 of their classes in last fall were put on by Hope for Wildlife. And we just got word that we have been asked to prepare the curriculum for grade 6 this year. And that's more on how animals and birds adapt to the winters and just how amazing they are. So it's going to be pretty fun to put that one together. So the second goal we have, of course, is the rehabilitation work itself. So currently, we're getting around 7,000 patients each and every year, and about 60 to 65% of those are birds that we get in at Hope for Wildlife, and the remainder is mammals, reptiles, amphibians, that kind of thing. This just gives you kind of a graphic view of what our world is like. This is 2 full years, and you can see how the trends are quite similar in when we get busy. And we're busy all year long, but you can see how come spring, it's not unusual. Almost every day we get 75 or 25 to 75 patients in. I think there was one day in 2 years, February 2nd, 2024, that we had no patients dropped off. It was a blinding blizzard, so no one could get through. But other than that, it's a pretty busy place. I think our busiest day this year was 121 birds that came in. And the last but not least goal that we've always had at Hope for Wildlife is research. A lot of people don't think of us as a research kind of place, but it truly is amazing how many people contact us, how many people want access to our data bank. All the scientific papers that have been published so far since we've been open. I think one of the interesting was we were the first to diagnose avian influenza in Nova Scotia a few years back. It was a Canada goose, and he was written up in many journals. And as soon as it arrived, we were very aware that avian influenza was here, and we guessed that that's what it was. We immediately put in quarantine. Now, sadly, with avian flu, they die very quickly. So the next morning, the goose had passed. We sent him to University of PEI for testing. It came back as positive. They sent it to Winnipeg, and it came back as the H5N1 highly pathogenic strain. And that was the first case reported in our province. And the same is true for Newfoundland. It was a wildlife rehab facility that picked up the first case. So it just shows you, because we get so many birds and mammals in, we are the first to see what's happening in our natural world. Another interesting thing is we got fox pups in the next year, and they tested positive for avian flu also. So think about it. Mom fox was on the beach and picked up a bird that had the virus, took it home and fed it to her pups, and they all got it. But the interesting thing with the difference between birds and mammals, with birds, it's like upper respiratory, and you can almost hear them wheezing from a distance of how bad they are. But with mammals, it attacks the brain. So the virus works in different ways, and they can live through it with supportive care. So 2 of those fox pups survived, and we were able to take blood and analyze it. And we discovered that they had built up immunity against the virus. And of course, it is mutating and those kind of things too. But I think it's very important that we're studying nature and learning about it at any way that we can. And it helps politicians, it helps government, it helps farmers, it helps community to know what's going on in our natural world. Just a few of the reasons we get wildlife in, and you're probably very much aware of a lot of them, but window strikes is one of the top 3 reasons we get bird patients in. And the really good thing is we're making headway in the kind, if you're building a new build, you can actually go on the market and buy windows that already have the UV in them. And birds can see that. We can't, birds can see it. If you ever have a bird hit your window, be sure to get your window gems. They're inexpensive and you can use dots or you can use things like this that the birds can see if you put them on the outside of your window. But it's not a inconvenience to you because you can see right out past them and you hardly know they're there. But it's nice that we're making headway, and some cities are making it their mandate to build with these kind of windows so that birds will not have these collisions. It's interesting in our world how much we've learned. 15 years ago, if a bird hit a window and you called Hope for Wildlife, we'd say, okay, put it in a box, let it rest for a half hour, open the lid. If it flies away, good. We now know that's really poor information. So for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been giving different advice. If a bird hits your window, put it in a box and bring it to us as quick as you can, or we can arrange for pickup. Because oftentimes it's a hard enough strike that there's brain swelling, and that bird needs the Medicam and gabapentin for the pain, and he needs something to relieve that swelling of the brain, and it can make the real difference. They actually did research and tracked some of those birds that were let go right away, and I think over 50% of them died from the head trauma. The other problem we see with window strikes is broken core cords, and you can see it's part of the shoulder. The bird can still flutter about a bit, so sometimes people are under the illusion that perhaps it will be okay, but that's going to take 6 weeks to heal. So bring them in, giving them that healing time in a safe environment, and then releasing the bird is the best way to go. So we do see that quite a bit on the window strike birds. And if you look close, you'll see a little eyeball of a great horned owl looking out at you. This gentleman hit this owl with his truck and it went right inside the grill. And this happens a lot more often than you think. It's hard to believe they live through it, but a lot of them do. So we would go, they called us and we got the great horned owl out and kept him for observation for a little while just to let him heal up a bit. But there was nothing broken, amazingly. But we do have record number of bird hits in the winter. And I always equate it to we're now traveling at the same time barred owls are hunting. So all summer long, it's still light out when the busy rush hour traffic happens. So the owls aren't out hunting. But when the time changes, there's a conflict between our getting home from work and hunting time for the owls. So sadly, I remember one winter in about 3 short months, we had over 100 hit by car barred owls come in that winter. This winter hasn't been so bad, but we still got over 25 barred owls in already this year. So slow down. Even 5 kilometers can make a difference between life or death in these and be aware. Keep your eye out, and especially at dawn and dusk when it's a difficult time. And one of the 3 top reasons we get wild or birds in particular in is, free roaming cats and dogs. So we do see a lot of injured birds. And oftentimes people call and say, oh, my cat brought home a bird. It's alive. I'm just going to let it go. And I can't see blood or I can't see a wound. But the cat bite can heal up incredibly fast. It doesn't really heal, you can't tell, you can't see, there may not be blood. So if the bird has been in a cat's mouth, it should come in for antibiotics. A cat's mouth carries a lot of bacteria, and sadly, most birds die within the first 48 hours of contact. So we really do try and encourage people to build a catio for their kitty cat, and it's a better world for the cat, and it's great for the natural world. So a big part of what we do is try and educate on all 3 of these main reasons that we see injured wildlife in. If you come out to visit, we have the cafe catio, and attached to the cafe where you can get free coffee is a big cage that has a bobcat in it that's open for display. And we kind of make a joke that your catio doesn't need to be this big, but just trying to get the message out there that it's a good thing to do for a whole lot of reasons. And of course, going with hand in hand with controlling your pets is a fledgling season. Birds go from the nest to the ground, not usually from nest to flight. So when they're on the ground, it's the most vulnerable stage of their development. If you stand back and watch, you'll see mom and dad flying around, flying down to feed them. But again, they're very vulnerable. They don't spend a lot of time. Usually within a couple of days, they're up and flying or getting into the bottom branches. Sometimes people kidnap them and bring them into us, but we always ask questions and explain. And oftentimes they'll take them home and they'll call me back and they'll say, "Yep, I saw the mom and dad fly down and feed it." So it is something that sometimes people aren't aware of, but again, pay extra attention through the spring and late and right into the summer, really. And sometimes we have two nests of birds, so really all summer long you have to watch out for fledglings. And we get a lot of animals in that are tied up in our netting at parks and at people's homes. A thing to really watch out for is your hammock. Not only do birds get tangled in them, but white-tailed deer, often the males with their antlers, they get caught in it. It can be quite severe. So get that hammock picked up as quick as possible when you're done using it. And sometimes these birds are tangled really high up, so it's hard to rescue them. But we do our very best on every call that comes in to try and get them down and get them into wildlife rehab. Oh, they're really hard when they're in the water, especially like a loon or something that's tied up in netting, because they can dive and escape our attempts to gather them. And here's another little one in a fencing, a plastic fencing. Sometimes birds get in the strangest places, something we might just have out in our yard, junk that we didn't pick up. And we get calls on that kind of thing too. Sometimes just human garbage. And, that doesn't look that severe, but it is. Trying to get that off, they're going to lose a ton of feathers and then they're going to lose their waterproofing. And then you got to wait for things to grow back in. So it's quite a serious problem. Anything involving the feathers of a bird takes a long time. If flight feathers snap off and are broken, we have a saying, we'd rather have broken bones than broken feathers because it takes almost a full year for them to grow back in. Sometimes, I don't know when this really revolution happened of leaving things out for birds to build nests with. We don't need to do that. They're perfectly capable, as you guys know, but sometimes people will leave out twine and hair and all that kind of thing, but it ends up causing real severe problems when birds get it wrapped around their toes, their digits, and you can see they actually fall off because they've lost circulation and blood flow. So it's a much harder life to have to cope with this kind of thing. This year, it's funny, we get a lot of birds in that are blown in from storms, whether it's due to climate change or just natural storms. The dovekies, when they get blown into land, they can't take off like the petrels and loons and that kind of. Any bird that has their legs way back there, they have a hard time getting back to the ocean. So this year we've had more dovekies in the last 2 months than we've had in the last 4 years combined. So we've had a lot of dovekies come in to Hope for Wildlife, and we usually check them over, give them a quick x-ray, get them back to the ocean at dawn or dusk. And they often, when you put them back in, they often don't fly off, but you'll see them dive down and be ever so happy to be back home. Another thing I kind of like to mention is a lot of people talk about feeders, wonder if they're appropriate or not. I like the concept of building a habitat that birds love. Forget about your green grass. It's like a desert to most wildlife. And plus you're a slave to mowing it all weekend. So forget about grass, put in a lot of fruit trees, a lot of berry bushes, just natural indigenous plants, and the birds will flock to it and they'll have protection. So you'll have this most beautiful garden that you can watch your birds in and enjoy them. So just something that we try and promote at Hope for Wildlife. A few little cases I wanted to show you while I was here today. This goose has a problem, as you can see, the arrow there. And of course, when we saw him, we thought, oh no, it's going to be in the joint or it's going to have damaged the ligament. but we were very lucky. And if you look at this x-ray, you'll see the arrow still in and it comes down through. And he was very lucky. We were able to remove it surgically, and that we got the goose out in a couple of months, and he flew away beautifully. But I think the interesting part of this story, and a lot of you probably noticed already, this goose was shot 3 separate times, once with the arrow, once with a pellet gun, and once with a shotgun with the round shots there too. So that's one lucky goose to survive all that trauma. Another thing that you may not be aware of, a lot of people know that green bins are a magnet to raccoons and that kind of thing. But guess what? They're also a cesspool for birds. And I remember Butch from DNR giving me a call last year and saying, Hope, are you getting a lot more calls on birds that have gotten into green bins? And I say, yeah, I have been getting a lot more. And it's really a terrible, terrible ordeal. Like the stress, the heat alone can kill them. And just the fermentation of what's going on inside the green bin can kill them. So if you're going to, you should always buy one of these heavy duty bungee cords. You can get them at Princess Auto and places like that. But they're tough. You pull this as tight as you can pull it and put it over the handles, and this will keep wildlife from entering your green bin because it's really difficult to clean them. We often get them too from restaurants that put their cooking oil outside and forget to put the cover on, and the birds dive in there and feast on that, and it's very, very hard to get them clean. It takes a long time. Another thing, we've all seen this where they have plastic on their head, and you think, oh, that's not a big deal, it'll just fall off. But sadly, that's not the case. It took 2 weeks to even catch this bird because they're still flighted. We finally got him and have him in here, and you think, well, you'll just catch him and you'll take it off and you'll let him go right there. End of story. Sadly, a lot of these cases, the plastic cuts into their head and are growing within the bird. So they have to come in, they have to go through surgeries. This bird went through 2 different surgeries. And here's the release day many months later. I think it was almost 3 months. You can see there where all the feathers haven't quite grown back in on the head, but there was still enough beautiful weather left that it shouldn't have been a problem. But I like this story because the next 2 pictures will show you why. I think it's something we forget about, and we shouldn't. We never should. So the crow was released. He immediately jumped up on the railing of his home turf, and within 3 minutes, this happens. So I just think it's so beautiful to see the relationships of these animals, and it doesn't matter if it's a crow or what it is. They all have family units. It's really important to us to try and get them back to where they came from, and here they are here. And I just think it's something that we forget. We're not the only beings that share affection and love for their family units. So it's important to keep that in mind. I thought this was such a nice story. I called the people and say, hey, is your crow still there? And I got a picture from it just from a couple of weeks ago to share with you today. And this was a story on some bald eagles. We all know that in mating rituals, they can lock talons, but they let go and they don't crash to the ground. So this was, I think it was 2 males fighting. And this is how they were when we arrived on the scene. And usually they will let go. We cover their faces, their eyes, so they calm down and they'll let go. Well, they didn't, so we had to take them back to our South Shore triage center, and they wouldn't let go there either. We put them in a dark, quiet place, covered their heads. They were just holding. So we had to actually put them under anesthetic and pry their talons apart. One was fine, and we were able to get them right back out, but the other, not so lucky. And this is the humerus, and you can see where it's broken there. Now, in a human, we might put a plate in there, but plates usually stay in, and we can't do that with animals in our cold winters. They would get frostbite. It would not be good. So we do it a different way. We use medical grade stainless steel pins and external fixators. And basically, the pin is put in the center of the bone and it will calcify and heal. And then all that hardware, this is the external fixator part, all that hardware comes out, and then we put the bird into a big flight cage where he can work that muscle, and then he's released back to the wild. So a broken bone like that usually takes about 3 months from beginning to end for complete healing till release. And a lovely turkey vulture. I just love these guys. They're just amazing. And he came in as a very special case. As we know, they clean up all the dead animals, and this one came in, and when we ran the blood work on him, his lead levels were too high to read. Now, it's normal for us to test lead levels on most of our birds of prey. And if we see a reading between 15 or 20, we would start chelation right away. We didn't know what too high to read meant, so we were digging out and looking it up in the book. And it's 65 parts instead of 15 to
Jesus.
20. So a ton of lead poisoning. When we x-rayed, we could see the lead in the stomach here, and we would lavage or pump that out of the stomach. This is the x-ray before and the x-ray after. But the turkey vulture had to go through two sets of chelation treatments to get all the lead out. The first did not fix it, but the second time around, it got the numbers down. So we were able to get this guy back out to the wild. This is inside the mouth of a barred owl, and something we see a lot of. If you look close, you'll see white worms, and it's a Laria. I always get that wrong. Um, but we see it a lot in the barred owls. So the doctor would just take a swab of that and look at it under the microscope, and you can see what you're dealing with. And it's easy to treat. Now we see the gape worm often in crows and ravens, and this worm's a white worm, but the one in the crows and ravens is a red worm, and we just call it the gape worm. And so it's easy to treat. But if you ever hear a bird that sounds like he's got a tickle in his throat, it's probably a gape worm that you're experiencing. This case was really cool. This was a beautiful bald eagle. And he had a broken, cracked, fractured mandible, and then the beak itself, the keratin was also cracked. Um, as you can see from the x-ray, and Dr. Michaela did an amazing job of getting that uh, stabilized. And then once the healing took place, she was able to get that bird back out into the wild. Um, at first glance at this shot, you might think, oh, he impaled himself. But once we took the bird off the branch and brought him in for medical, there was a very old wound in his wing, and you can see the big hole there. And then if you look at the x-ray, the hole shows up even better. Now, we could tell it had been there for a long, long time, but then he'd gotten the branch stuck in the old hole. Now, what Dr. Michaela was able to do was debride the edges and get the dead skin gone and get some pink growth there and stitch them back together. And it was two surgeries, but she was able to get it healed. This guy's still with us, but we should probably be able to get him out in the spring. So it really is. Oh, this is Rhonda. She's one of my oldest volunteers at Hope for Wildlife. She's been with me for over 26 years now. And I really just want to say, without volunteers, you can't go forward. It's just amazing the kindness and the family that is created from any charity. And I'm sure you guys experience the same thing. And where would we be without our volunteers? But I also have to say, things have progressed so much in the medical world. What we were capable of doing back in the 90s, there wasn't even such thing as a blood machine that would read 100 or 300 different species blood. Now we have that capability. We didn't know a cephalexin would kill a porcupine. Now we know it will. We didn't know that oral antibiotics on a white-tailed deer was useless because of their complicated digestive systems. Now we know give injectable. So there's so much we've learned, and we continue to learn each and every day. So sometimes when I look back at how far we've come, it just amazes me to think of what we've learned over the years. So thank you so much for having me. I know I talk a lot. Sorry about that. And I also wondered if you guys had any questions for me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, Hope. It's fascinating and some amazing photographs. And yeah, you're right. Without the volunteers helping, we're nothing.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
wonderful.
It's so, so true. Yeah.
Yeah, please ask what questions. Please, hand up or put a question in chat. First one to see up is Francis. So, what question have you got?
Um, I have a question. How many snowy owls have you gotten in?
This year, none. But through the years, we probably got about 10 or 12. They're really quite rare and we don't see them often. But usually when they come in, we get three or four in a year. So this year, and probably the group here could answer, has there been many sightings of snowy owls this year?
Snowies seem to be down this year. You tend to find they turn up in Nova Scotia if they've had a good season up north, and suddenly their food supply could collapse, or there's too many birds trying to get too many small mammals, whatever, to eat. So they'll disperse, and we've had few down here in the southwest, two or three, but not many this year.
Yeah, we haven't had any that I've heard of. I'm sure there are some, but hopefully they've all been healthy. So I haven't had a call on any yet this year.
You know, the local one to us down here on Cape Forshoe, I mean, it was here for a couple of weeks, really. It was doing a great job of clearing the rats at one of the local fish wharfs. It was
Perfect.
amazing to watch it hunt.
Yeah, the
Can you
fishermen should be happy to have them.
can you visit Hope for Wildlife anytime, or is it like, or is it you can you visit anytime, or is it just during the open house?
So we do open through the week in the winter on Saturdays from 12 till 3. And we, even though on a cold wintry day when you think no one's going to come visit, we get sometime 100, 200 people, even in the winter. So that's a lot of fun and we really enjoy it. And this summer we'll probably open Wednesday and Saturday so we can get more people out to visit. And then our open house is usually the last Saturday of August. And we're going to try and have it this year. Last year, sadly, because of the drought, it was just too much risk and too much worry. I just didn't want to take the chance that something would go terribly wrong by inviting 4,000 people into your property. A lot could go wrong. So we did decide for the environment, it would probably be best decision to cancel it. But we'd done all the work, so it was really disappointing to have to not have it. But we're going to try again this year. And on that day, on the open house, that's the day we let people go everywhere. When we're open the rest of the time, there's just a small area of the farm, but it's a lot of fun. And you still get to see a lot of the educational animals and the exhibits. And on Saturday, I'm usually working in the hospital and I give tours of our veterinary hospital, which I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, thank you. I see, Ghislaine, you've got your hand up.
Yes, at the beginning, you showed us three pools, and the list of animals that use those pools was mind-boggling. Is that enough? Do you have enough?
Don't have enough helpers?
No,
No.
pools.
What is it? Enough what?
Enough pools, those blue pools
Oh,
you have.
that's a really good question.
There's
Yes.
just three of them,
No,
right?
no, we never ever have. Like in the summer, it's like, Hope, where are we going to put this? Hope, where are we going to put that? And it's like sometime a lineup of animals waiting to go in. And it's not just the pools, like our white-tailed deer or our bald eagles and our flight cages, our owls and our flight units. There's usually a lineup waiting. We run out of room in our squirrel units. We run out of room. It really, and every year I try hard to build new units to make them better, to make them nicer, to have more of them so we can accommodate the numbers. It really is. I'd really like to get the triage centers to specialize in a particular animal, and that would help the load here in Seaforth. If we could divide the love around, it would probably make sense for us. But no, it's a struggle. Yeah.
Thank you. I've seen a message in the chat from Natalie reading, what impact do you think the closure of the wildlife division at the DNR will have for you at Hope for Wildlife? I touched on this earlier, and
Yeah, we did chat before we started today, and it's really heartbreaking for me because I know we've DNR and Hope for Wildlife have had their ups and downs. But in the last 3 years, there's been this new relationship that has been truly wonderful. There's been respect on both sides, and we've been working really, really well together. And when Andrew Boyne was hired as the head of the wildlife division, that's when I saw the change. So we would have meetings out at the farm. We would, talk through things, and things would get, we'd get more permissions to go ahead with our work. Um, So now Andrew Boyne is gone, so that's very disappointing. I think he was a wonderful man, and it makes me very sad to see him gone because he was making change for us and for us to do our work well and do it in the way we wanted to. So I was also very lucky. A number of the DNR employees that I've worked closely with for 30 years called me and they said, "Don't worry, Hope, it's business as usual. Still send in your reports, still keep in touch with us. Black Bear Rehab is still going forward." So it was really touching to get those phone calls and for them to tell me that everything's good. But I mean, the person that signs my permit every year to allow me to do what I do is no longer with DNR. So I don't know what to expect. Kind of like everybody, I guess.
It's going to be an interesting situation for a while, and I know a large number of the conservation naturalist bodies around the province are very concerned, to say the
Yeah.
least. But
And I know Donna Hurlbert has been let go, and she was the head of our species at risk division. And I know, there were certain things we didn't always agree with DNR, but I know she was instrumental in trying to get habitat protection. And one of my loves is the pine marten, as you can see in this photo. And like she was instrumental in trying to keep that little bit of old forests there and stable. And I hope that doesn't go away. I really, really do.
yeah, it's going to be a very interesting few months, stroke
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
Anyway, what other questions have we got, folks? If
How do
not,
you
I've got.
do how do you do your volunteer work? How do you get volunteers?
We're lucky people like your volunteers are very passionate, and 9 times out of 10 they will contact us asking, is there something we can do to help? And we pick up some great expertise. We've had some new members on the board this year with special areas, and we can call on a lot of wonderful people.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
Um, one history question, just we used to live for many years very close to Hope in Seaforth. Whatever happened to Shuby the Raven?
As happens often in soft releases, we don't do a lot of soft releases only because we have neighbors. But Shuby was one of those birds that we released from the property. And he was friendly but not imprinted. He was habituated but not imprinted. But he would caused quite a stir and he created many stories. I remember one day somebody gave me chocolates because it was just a nice gesture and I set them down and he swooped down and grabbed those chocolates and flew off with them. We could be painting and he'd swoop in and grab the paintbrushes. I mean, there was just so many things. But he did find a mate and we saw him with his mate and then we saw him less and less. So it wasn't just one day he was gone. It was like we'd see him less and less and less, as does happen with the soft releases. So it's kind of cool. We did one otter soft release here from Hope for Wildlife just 2.5 years ago. And it takes 18 months to rehabilitate an otter. And it was so cool because he'd come and go and come and go. We'd see him less and less. And then in August of 2 years ago, we didn't see him anymore. But that was the winter of all the ice, and it was really slippery. It was a tough winter. And we saw him in February, came back. He went running up to where he used to get his food. I threw him a mackerel, and he chowed down on that, and then he headed back to the lake. So I know he survived, and he knew where to get his fish if he was really hungry. So I like the soft release. Obviously, we can't do that very often, but every once in a while we do.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is Hope knows Shuby the Raven adopted us for a few months when we lived like 5 minutes from Hope, and we used to have about 25 to 30 beautiful stainless steel solar lights alongside our driveway. They were lovely. It looked really cool, like an aircraft runway. Um, and then Shuba decided he didn't like him very much. And in the course of a couple of days, he wrecked every single one of these solar lights. He even got the batteries out of them. He took them back to their basic components and left them scattered down the driveway. And then he'd sit on our deck and look in the house and look very pleased with himself.
He used to take clothes off the line too, clothespins, and all the laundry would go on the ground. Yeah.
Another time we had peacocks from Hope walking around our yard. To look outside when you're a bird person and see a peacock walking down your road, realize where it's come from and ring up Hope and find her and a number of volunteers running around the yard trying to catch these peacocks was quite an experience. Happy,
Um,
crazy days.
no one want to move to Seaforth with those kind of stories.
We miss it, but there we go.
There you go.
Note from Joan. Is there any conflict in interest for you letting nature take its course?
Oh, I love that question. And we've been sort of taught to think that over the years, but what we deal with 90% or 95% is human wildlife conflicts, nothing to do with nature. It's all stuff us humans have caused. We have a unwritten responsibility to give back, to fix what we've caused. And over the years, I've changed my way of thinking on that question. And that even if we were, like, say it was just a natural storm and we got involved and saved the bird, I have no problem with that because every single day, just by living our lives and driving our cars and burning fossil fuels, we have a negative impact. So it's about time us as human beings started taking on the responsibility of saying it's okay to give back to nature, and we should be. So that interfering, I don't think we interfere at all. I think if we see an animal that needs a help along the way, we should be there and give it. And I think there comes a tipping point, and we've far exceeded that tipping point. And I think it's time that we all should be told it's okay to give back and to care about our natural world.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I got one from Veronica here as well. Is there a wildlife first aid kit? Any ideas for things they can take with them on their bird walks to help birds in particular? I must admit, just putting in here, for many years we carried in the back of our vehicle large sheet, blanket, whatever, tote, suitable because we were forever finding stranded dovekies or something injured and take them down the road to Hope.
Yeah,
There we go.
good. Yeah, I love to hear it. And we do, when people sign up and want to volunteer for us, we give them some training and we used to give them a little kit. It's basically a cardboard box and a blanket and maybe something that, like a little broom that if you see a porcupine hit, you can shoo him into a Rubbermaid and get him upright so you can bring him in for medical care. So we give a few little handy things that would keep you safe and keep the animal safe to get it brought in for the medical care. So just exactly what you suggested there. The cardboard box is amazing. A blanket is perfect. And you can do a lot just with those two things. I've actually had to talk people through that were willing how to catch a bald eagle that's in distress, badly broken wing. Okay, this is how you do it. And, being able to very carefully, it doesn't happen often, but talk them through what to do to get that animal in to be helped. And I mean, that's rare that people are willing to do that. Usually we go and try and respond, but it's a lot. And sometimes we get behind, and I hate it because we had a little sawit that got the call came in at 10 o'clock last night, and I couldn't get anybody to go that late. So in the morning, I got the text that it had passed away. But, so you want to be there for everybody, but it's hard because there's 7,000. That's just what we get to. I'm sure there's another 7,000 that we don't get to.
Yeah, I've waded through a few ice filled creeks, lakes, and ditches rescuing dovekies in regular clothing in the past, and it
Yeah.
can be interesting to say the least. Great question here as well. I was thinking it myself. Do you band birds before release? That would be great if you could.
No, we used to, and they used to be supplied by DNR, and they had DNR's number, 1-800 number, and we used to get really good data back. There was one osprey, fascinating, Elaine and Mike Q. They had banded it, and then and so it was way before I even started. And this osprey, I think it was like 19 years old, and it ended up in Maine. and at another rehab, and it died there, but it was very, very old. But isn't that cool that we know that bird went through rehab as a young bird and lived 19 years? It was 18 or 19 years and was picked up again because of the leg band. Now, DNR doesn't supply the leg bands anymore. They stopped the practice. But now there's, we on our tower, if you ever come out to visit, is it Motris?
The motor system,
Yeah,
yeah,
Modus. We
dotted
have
around the
the
province.
antennas up there. So anybody that's microchipped or put a tracker on a bird can be from anywhere in the world. It's a world connected system. If it flies over our tower, it would show a little beep and we'd know. And we haven't got to the point yet where we've put the markers on our birds, but I really want to get there, and I really want to do that because I think there's nothing more important. With our white-tailed deer, we always ear tag them, so and we get data back if hunters have shot them, and we get good questions answered, like what kind of shape was the deer in, how long had he lived out in the wild, all those kind of things. So it is good to have some way to track data, and I'd like to do more of it in the future.
Yeah, it's great. I'll get another comment or question I love. What are some of the strangest, rarest birds you've taken in? I think I know what one of these is going to be. Answered very quickly.
Well, I mean, there's been so many, and some I don't even know what they are, and that's where I depend on you guys.
Come
Okay,
on,
what is this
Ralph.
bird?
You know Ralph.
Ralph was famous. He was the perfect story. He had politics, he had humor, he had drama, he had political red tape, and it had a beautiful ending. So Ralph the pelican actually was found in Yarmouth area, and they gathered him up off the. No, Ralph, he was found
Ralph
at.
was
That
from a
was the first
certain
pelican. Yeah.
closed establishment in Dartmouth. Was
Yes, right in
Ralph's.
behind where I work. So I'm sitting at my desk at Dartmouth Vet, and the phone rings, and they say it's Ralph's Place, which is a local tavern. And I won't say any more. And they say, "There's a pelican on the roof. Will you come see?" And so I get my net, my blanket, and I go into Ralph's Place. And they immediately send the supervisor to kind of kick me out and escort me out of their establishment. So I'm in the parking lot talking about a pelican on the roof, and they think I'm a little crazy. And then the pelican, Ralph decides to fly down right in front of us, right at that moment. And we were able to get him, but he had had some trauma. Not to mention, it's not normal. You know, we don't normally see pelicans in the city like that. And that was a long time ago. And it was right around 9/11. So there was really tough regulations on moving things across the border. So trying to move a pelican across the border, you couldn't just put it on a plane and get it there. You had to drive it. So I ended up driving with the help of some wonderful people all the way to the Carolinas and getting it to a rehab there and getting it released that way. So, but Ralph wasn't a boy. Ralph turned out to be Ralphina.
Yeah, I remember that so well.
It was so cool.
Very,
I
very,
was
very,
quite
very tactful of
experienced.
you describing its location.
Uh,
Oh, yes, bless it. But yeah, you had a yellow-billed cuckoo from me as well that we
yeah,
rehabbed
yeah.
and released many moons later in our driveway. I remember that. I still got the photos somewhere. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then after hurricanes, we always get some birds from coming up that got caught in the storms, like skimmer. You would know them better than me, but like I seriously would have to go to the books, figure out what they were,
Yeah.
and the trouble with those kind of birds, they've gone through so much. Even if we were miracle workers, it's sometimes hard to save them because they're just so exhausted and so starved that even when you put them on a slow rehydration program and do everything by the book, it's very, very hard. But sometimes we get lucky and are able to save them, but they're
Yeah,
difficult.
Dorian was devastating. There was just things I never want to see again, to be truthful, around the Eastern Shore.
Mm,
And a heck of a lot of weird gulls everywhere just by the roadside. And yeah, unfortunately, they were dying in front of your eyes. It's as
yeah.
simple as that.
Yeah, they were. And I
Terrible.
remember, I forget which hurricane, we had hundreds of laughing gulls show up in our driveway. Birders from all over came, and it was kind of a big joke. They know where to go, you know, and there were just hundreds in the parking lot. Yeah, I remember that well.
It's crazy, crazy times. And yeah, climate change and whatever else. What other questions have we got, folks? Oh, lots of nice comments thanking you for everything.
Oh, thank you guys. It's really nice. Thank you for coming to the meeting, and it was really
Yeah.
lovely to. It's always better in person, but Zoom is the next best thing. So it's really great to be
Yeah,
here.
that's
Thank you.
great. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We will be putting a link to a YouTube out in a few days' time for this. So again, thank you to Hope and for everybody attending. Most appreciated. Spring is round the corner. The birding will be getting great again soon. Please, the snow is slowly going. So thanks everybody, and hope to see you out in the field and see you soon again, Hope.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys all have a great day. Take
Thank
care.
you. Take
Thanks,
care.
Hope.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So nice to see you all.